You know how it is during the off-season. Everyone starts to think the big stories are over. Things get quiet for a while, and then, suddenly, something gains momentum out of nowhere. And now, there's a situation involving the Bears that's causing quite a stir, because if these rumors actually come true, this defense could end up being very different from what many fans expected. The interesting part? The price for this to happen might not be as absurd as you imagine. I'll tell you everything in detail, so smash that like button. And if you've been a fan for more than 25 years, write in the comments, "Still riding with the Bears." Josh Sweat is becoming one of the most talked about names around the Chicago Bears again. And this situation is starting to feel much more interesting than many fans expected a few weeks ago. At first, a lot of people probably looked at the rumors and thought this was just another off-season discussion that would disappear quickly. But now, there are more signs suggesting that something may actually be developing behind the scenes. The biggest question is no longer whether Josh Sweat is a talented player. The question is whether his current situation in Arizona could create a real opportunity for Chicago. The conversation gained momentum because reports and league chatter have continued pointing toward possible frustration surrounding Sweat's current situation with the Cardinals. OTA activities began, and while participation is voluntary, there was a tension around his absence. Multiple reports over the course of the offseason have continued suggesting there may be some level of unhappiness there. When you start putting all the pieces together, you can understand why people are beginning to connect the dots. Josh Sweat is not some aging player coming off a disappointing season. He is a player who recently put together one of the best seasons of his career. He is coming off a year where he reached a career high with 12 sacks, proving once again that he can be an impactful pass rusher. He's also a player with championship experience after winning a Super Bowl during his time with Philadelphia. Players with that type of resume naturally want to compete at the highest level. Now look at Arizona's situation. This is a team still trying to figure out its future direction. Rebuilding organizations often create difficult situations for veterans entering the prime years of their careers. Sweat is approaching a stage where every season matters. A player in that position wants opportunities to compete immediately, rather than spending years waiting for a rebuild to fully develop. From Chicago's perspective, this becomes extremely fascinating because one issue has remained under discussion throughout the offseason: the pass rush. The Bears have made efforts to improve areas of the roster, but there are still questions surrounding the defensive line and whether enough impact players are currently available to create consistent pressure. Imagine inserting Josh Sweat into that room. Suddenly, you are talking about adding an experienced edge presence who has consistently produced throughout his career. He may not be a perfect player. There are areas where his overall snap usage differs depending on situations. But when you are talking about getting after opposing quarterbacks, production matters. Sack numbers matter. Winning pass rush reps matters. Pressure matters. What makes this discussion even more interesting is the potential cost. That's where things start becoming very attractive for Chicago. Trade projections discussed recently suggested that a conditional fourth-round selection that could eventually become a third-round pick might be enough to complete a deal. Think about that for a moment. If Chicago gives up a fourth-round pick that only becomes a third if certain performance conditions are met, then the Bears are basically rewarding production. If Sweat reaches specific sack numbers or plays enough games to trigger those conditions, that likely means he delivered exactly what Chicago would want him to deliver. Fans would probably take that outcome immediately. Because if you are trading a future third-round selection and getting one of your most productive pass rushers in return, that's difficult to complain about. The alternative discussions have included bigger names and much larger prices. Some elite players would require enormous draft capital and massive financial commitments. But Josh Sweat feels different because this is a move that potentially strengthens a major area of need without forcing Chicago into a situation where they mortgage major parts of their future. And during this stage of the offseason, details like that matter. Because the Bears do not necessarily need a complete defensive rebuild overnight. They need upgrades, they need impact, they need pressure off the edge, they need players who can change games in critical moments. Josh Sweat might not solve every problem, but if an opportunity really exists and the cost remains reasonable, the conversation becomes impossible to ignore. So Bears fans, if the price really ends up being a fourth-round pick that could become a third, would you make that move for Josh Sweat? Or would you stay patient and wait for another option? And before you go, if you're enjoying the coverage and want the latest Chicago Bears news, rumors, and updates delivered first, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss anything. Drop a like on the video if you think Josh Sweat could be the missing piece for this defense, and let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Stay locked in because the biggest Bears updates are coming right here. And bear down.